Hello, Zach.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Good, you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for taking this opportunity to join our podcast. So,
Yeah, of course.
the format is we first start with a small introduction from my side. It won't take more than a minute, and then we'll get to your story.
Yeah, awesome. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to be the first person.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, this will be the first interview of many for you guys, and you know, you guys grow into a huge podcast, and in 5 years, I can say I was the first one.
Yeah, yeah, we are excited for the same. And yeah, thanks for being part of being our guest today. Yeah, and we really appreciate your support in this.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
So,
Cool.
hi everyone. I'm Akash Matthew, and I'm here representing Seed. And at Seed, we are about helping brands build transparency and trustworthiness in their agri-food supply chains. We've been working in the sector since 2013, and during our journey, we've been working with several brands and organizations. And for us, it's always very interesting when we work with younger companies, and these are people who have made their life's goal to change the world as it is for real. And today we have with us Zach. He's from Wildland Coffee. And Zach, we are really happy to have you with us. So, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your coffee brand?
Yeah, thanks, Akash, for having me. I really appreciate it. So, like you just mentioned, my name's Zach Frantz. I'm the founder of Wildland Coffee. I'm based in San Diego, California. I'm sure you have a lot of international listeners, and so that's in the United States. For those maybe you didn't know, and so I actually got started on my entrepreneurial journey when I was 9 years old. So that would have been 1999, and I grew up cooking with my mom a lot,
Okay.
like making cakes and cookies, and I was just always in the kitchen with my mom. And so I really like to make cakes. I think it's because I was kind of a fat kid, and I thought, I want to start a cake making business. And so there was this service on Yahoo, when Yahoo was like still a leading company back in the day, where you could actually make a drag and drop. It was a drag and drop maker for websites, like
Oh,
think Shopify, but in 1999. So
oh,
I actually made a website where you could go to my website. It was like yahoogeocities.com/, it was called Cakes by Zach. And I actually created a way where you could order a cake online. Um, I never actually sold any cakes online. There was no payment processing. So like I don't actually know how I thought I was gonna like actually collect business. But I sold one cake to my neighbor, and then I, ran out of my mom's funding, and I had to shut the business down. But that was how I really got my entrepreneurial journey started. So fast forward, like 29 years, or fast forward 20 years, and I was camping a lot. I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and bringing my French press with me. And I was kind of getting sick of using my French press while I was making coffee. And I thought there has to be a better way to do this. This is really frustrating. And if I have this frustration, other people have this frustration as well. And so I thought, why isn't someone just put coffee into like little bags or tea bags? Like that seems to be the obvious way to solve the problem. And I went home, I did some research. Turns out, like, I'm actually not the first one to think of that. I had never seen it before I had thought of it. And so I, continued thinking, well, if I'm a pretty avid outdoors person, I've never seen this product. I bet you a lot of other outdoors people haven't seen it, despite there already being products on the market. And so that's why I started this company. And, I'm about 2 years into this journey now.
that was quite interesting. Well, like the cliche question that everybody asks, what was the most challenging aspect of your journey?
So, I think, and I'm still pretty early. And so from speaking with like mentors and people who were ahead of me in the journey, because if we think about the journey of an entrepreneur, there's, it's trying to get to like $500,000 in sales and getting to $1 million in sales. And then like, 3, 5, 10, so on and so forth. And each stage of the journey inevitably has its problems and challenges. Um, you know, I would say the biggest challenge for me, just as I'm starting, is and getting ramped up, is the day-to-day mental grind that it takes to start a business. Because there's going to be days where you're going to have no sales or very few sales. There's going to be days where you have a lot of sales. There's going to be days where, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is stupid," or why are you doing this? There's a lot of people doubting you. And because I'm, again, relatively early in the journey, I kind of have to continue on just based on my faith that this is going to work. It's not like I'm doing $10 million a year in sales and I can say, well, hey, I've got $10 million a year in sales. This is a profitable, thriving business. Like if we think about it like having a baby, I'm in like the first 5 days of when you get pregnant, right? There's a lot of risk. You don't know if it's going to work out. You have a miscarriage, right? So it's just the day-to-day ups and downs. Like things are going well. Oh God, things suck. And it's just me right now. And so there's just piles and piles and mountains of work to do. So it's just like staying positive and staying consistent with the vision that this is going to go somewhere.
Yep. Well, I totally agree to that because, running a business is very difficult. And at every stage, you kind of face the similar challenge, but at a totally different level. Yeah. So when talking about day-to-day operations, we know that, customers are a very important aspect of a startup's success, especially the ones that are along with you when you start your journey. Can you tell us a bit about how you manage your customers? Do you have any special customers that you have got a bond and people who could help you scale up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this really goes back to the customer experience, right?
Yeah.
And so as I started the business, I have placed a big focus on ambassadors. So these are people who really love the brand, and I give them free product, and then they agree to talk about me on a regular basis, on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, wherever it might be. So I kind of think of I kind of stratify my customers in really like two different ways. So I've got my brand ambassadors, and I've got people who are paying for product. So I'll go into like a little bit more detail. So one thing that I do quite regularly is I will reach out to customers just with a personal note. I'll thank them for their business, and I'll ask them, what did you like about it? Like, what did you not like? And I really want to make my customers feel like they're coming along like the journey with me. How I think about customer experience more holistically is, and I'll start by saying this, that in business, concepts, ideas, processes, products get commoditized very quickly. So if we think about like the customer experience, like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, if you could do like free returns, oh my gosh, your customer experience was so amazing, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you don't do free returns, it's like, what's wrong with you? Like, so things that used to be considered a good customer experience are now, you have to do those things. It's no longer like a talking point, so to speak. So really, the way that I think about my customer experience is I think about it in a way like I'm telling a story to my customers. And I've been reading this book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He's pretty famous. I'm sure you've heard of him at least.
Yeah.
And so what I'm really focusing on is not so much like the specific attributes of my product, although I do focus on those, but really the story that I'm trying to tell, the customer experience that I'm trying to create is come along this journey with me, and I want them to buy into why I'm doing this. And the reason that I'm an entrepreneur, and the reason that I started this product, and kind of how I envision my life and how I want to help my customers kind of envision their life is my tagline, which is live different. So this is like not living the 9 to 5, not having that suburban lifestyle, it could be like a digital nomad. It could be that you're a weekend warrior, but you're doing things that are authentic to you, and you're not just like doing what society expects of you. So that's really like how I kind of position and think about my customer experience, is telling a story. And I give my customers a lot of like behind the scenes of how I'm building the business, what's going well, what's not going well. And I think that really makes them feel like they're a part of it, as opposed to just exchanging money for a product.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get it. You started in May 2021. I think that was one of
Yeah.
the most difficult times to start, let's say, a B2C business, especially in F&B sector. How was this experience for you? And you must have an immense lot of perseverance to get through these tough times, I believe.
You know, I would say by the time I started the business, at least here in the US, I feel like people were pretty like used to COVID. Like it was, and I know around the world it was, in other places of the world it was very different than how it was here. America definitely has some unique politics when it comes to vaccines and COVID, right?
Yeah.
But and that was like people were getting the vaccine, and so I think things were definitely like calming down. Um, what I will say though is, so one of my main strategies is actually being on Amazon. And actually, I think for a lot of businesses in the beginning of the pandemic, they had a surge in sales because they couldn't go to the grocery store. But what happened at the same time is, because of that, I don't know exactly what the number is, but it's like 25 or 30% of all Amazon sellers have joined in the last 18 months.
Okay.
So if you think about how that impacts someone's growth on Amazon like mine, it's higher CPCs, more competition, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I actually think in many ways, the time that I launched in terms of my Amazon strategy was a challenge because there's just more competition on that platform. But honestly, like as the kind of pandemic continues and kind of has a resurgence here in the US, it is impacting my retail strategy, which I'm just getting kicked off in the next couple months, because retailers aren't very excited. Well, they can't really do a lot of sampling. So like, in-store sampling and in-store demos. So, that's kind of to be seen on how that impacts it. But I would say, at this point in the pandemic, people are, at least here in the US, they're pretty used to it. The challenges are pretty well known. And we're just learning to like work around, supply chain. Like I'm doing a production run today, and my supplier was like, well, we might have to push it back because we got like 7 people out with Omicron. So,
Yeah.
it's just the way it is now. And you learn to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Well, coming to sales, you've sold software before,
Yeah,
and you're selling a coffee brand right now, which is easier.
maybe. So it's hard to compare the two. So there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences. So I'll talk about like the similarities. So the similarities is like you're trying to connect with someone on an emotional level. And
Mhm.
I don't care what you're trying to sell, someone, whether it's coffee, $1 million piece of software, a plane ticket, whatever. The companies that win are going to connect with you on an emotional level, and they're going to get you to buy in emotionally to that product. And then as humans, we make decisions with our emotions, then we rationalize with our and then we rationalize that decision with facts, right? That's generally like kind of the consensus on how people make decisions. So that's like how it's similar. So you're trying to convince someone to make a decision. Now, obviously the differences is when you're trying to sell coffee online, you probably have like 2 seconds to get that person interested. It's like they're either interested or they're not. They saw the image and they liked it, and then they continue to click on, or they didn't, right? So the decisions are more instantaneous, but you're having a lot more at bats at that decision. With software, you're probably selling to 4 to 8 people at a company, and you have longer to help them make that decision. Now, of course, you're not going to get as many sales, but when you do, a lot of money. So I don't know if one is harder than the other. They're very different. And so, yeah, it was nice selling software. It's, there's definitely advantages to that. But I definitely prefer the entrepreneurial life, and kind of selling coffee.
Okay, so let's say there are several people who wants to do business just like you.
Yeah.
What can you give them? I mean, give as an advice to these people who wants to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. So this is a question I get from like friends and people on LinkedIn. So what I tell people is if you want to start a company, the first thing that I would do is I would consider what's a problem in your own life that you want to solve. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, if you have a problem in your own life, there's probably, I don't know, a million other people that want to solve that problem, right? So, think about it. If you could get half of those people to buy your products, right, you've got a nice business. The other thing is humans are inherently motivated and bought into solving their own problems. So like for my coffee, I'm solving a problem for me. Like I'm lazy. I just want my coffee easily. It's hard for me to want to solve a problem that doesn't affect me. Like it's just, I just don't care a lot about that problem because I don't feel the pain. So I always encourage people to start there. The next step is I always encourage people to niche down as much as they can. And this goes contrary to a lot of things that people read and think, because there's a lot of like VC talk where it's like, go after the $10 billion industry. Well, like that's cool if you have $100 million and, you've done it before and, all these other things are checked. But the reality is if the bigger the market, the more competition you're going to have. So for me, if I was to try to be an everyday coffee company, now I'm competing against Starbucks. Well, who's going to win that battle? Starbucks. But so my vision for Wildland is I want to be the coffee brand for the outdoor community. All right. Is that a huge market? It's pretty big. It's not like, massive, but it's a big market. And there's not nearly the amount of competition in the outdoor community as there is in the general coffee community. So I always tell people niche down as much as you can, and you can always expand. But if you can get into a niche, then you can refine your messaging, your imagery, your influencers, your distribution, and really just like kind of narrow down on like one person or one type of person. That'll make your life a lot easier, and you just don't need as much money, and it's just easier. Well, not easy, just easier.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you're given $1 million, okay,
All right.
and you have to niche down, and you have to also choose one sector or one sales channel. Let's say online and brick and mortar. Which one do you choose?
For my current product,
Yeah.
$1 million, and I have to spend that on one channel.
Yeah.
I would go online.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So the reason is most Americans have never seen this product. They've never thought about coffee in like a single serve bag or, in like a tea bag kind of device. And so it takes education. And most people, their immediate assumption is that it's going to be a little watery because they think, oh, it's like in a bag. It's kind of like a tea bag. So they assume it's going to be watery. The reality is it tastes just like a French press. But so there's some initial hesitation. So I think as I continue to grow my company, I'm 100% convinced that online is going to be the best place because I can educate the customer more. I can, do things on TikTok. I can have ambassadors that help me overcome those challenges of the product. Whereas in retail, retail is going to be a strategy for me, but it's harder to overcome those things in retail, given the current size of my company and given the current understanding of this product. So if you guys have $1 million you want to give me, I would be more than happy to take it, and we can do some really cool things online.
Gosh, have you ever thought about a subscription model with your coffee?
Yeah, we absolutely have a subscription model. You can subscribe on the website. You can subscribe on Amazon. We actually just changed. We actually just adjusted our pricing model. So before, the least expensive was, with shipping, it was like $12, and you would get 5. Now what I'm doing is you can get 4 samples for $3.50. And so again, with some of the challenges that come along with my product, I want to make it very easy for customers to trial it. So, hey, if you can't spend $3.50, I probably don't want to use my customer anyways, right? So make it very easy to buy the product, try it. And this is actually something I just launched a couple of weeks ago. It's actually been like pretty successful so far in terms of getting people to try. And then the next step is either, get them to make another purchase or subscribe.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to subscription, you also have a longer, you have more time with your customers to give them better experience, to improve over time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it also helps, I believe. I see a couple of startups popping up in that sector as well, especially in things like coffee, where conventional people see this as, do people really do this? But I've seen successful business do it. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's some cool companies out there like Trade and others where like every month they'll send you like a new coffee brand, which is a cool model. It's a good model, and they're obviously having a ton of success. And I do think subscriptions will be key to Wildland's success moving forward.
Okay. Now another crazy question.
Yeah, I like them.
Well, let's say your company is doing $1 billion in revenue. $1 billion.
All right.
Can you give us an idea the type of impact it can bring in socially or environmentally? So
yeah, once you start to get to that level, I think there's a lot of like really interesting things that you're able to do at that level. Things with exploring new cool technology like blockchain, right? You could be doing R&D and development on, or funding some development on like sustainable packaging, things like that, where at my level, you kind of just take what's there. And I think when it comes to like employees, again, when you get to a certain scale, like you're really able to provide a lot of benefits to your employees, provide, sick time off, 401ks. This is actually something that I think Starbucks actually does pretty well. So I think the impact that large companies can have is kind of out, like the bigger you get, the more of an impact exponentially you can have, because you just have more resources to do things with. And so, do I want to have $1 billion company? I guess that's kind of to be determined, but regardless of what my size or scope is, environmental impact, treating, and I don't have any employees right now, I've got a couple of contractors, but like, treating contractors right, and doing what I can is always important, to make sure that I'm contributing to the well-being of the planet, not taking away from it.
Okay, great. So are you sure you've been only doing this for a couple of months or a year? You sound like you've been doing business for several years.
Well, so I started, so I've been selling this type of product for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I started another company in October of 2019. And then I left that company in November of 2020. And then I felt like I didn't get to execute on my original vision. So I started Wildland. So I've been doing Wildland since May, June of this year, but I had already been doing another business for like a year, a little bit more than a year before that. So it's been a little bit longer than just my wildland experience, but yeah.
Yeah, but by listening to your answers, it feels like it's more than two. It's just several years of gyan
I don't
inside
know.
your head that comes out. And I really hope and I really wish that you guys get to that 1 billion mark and
That would be
soon.
interesting.
And yeah, thanks again, Zach, for today's session. And yeah, this is our first podcast. And thanks a ton for providing us your support. And I hope we can keep track of your progress. And one day we can also have you again in this to see how things are going.
On episode 1000, I'll be at $1 billion.
Before that, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks, Akash.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. It was great talking to you. Bye.